Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. This next project, we are going to do some basic keyframe transformations, and that is the basic way we do animation in the digital world. So we're going to do some keyform or keyframe transformations. So let's start off. We'll just set up our project here. We're going to do a new composition, and today our width is going to be 640 by 480 height. We're going to do 30 frames a second, and finally we're going to have a 2-second duration here. 640 by 480, 30 frame rate, 2-second duration. Click OK. And in this assignment, you are going to actually make your own objects in After Effects on what are called solid layers. So the minimum requirement for the assignment is you must have at least 3 solid layers. So I think I'm going to have 4 or 5 here when it's all said and done. So I'll do 4 layers actually. So let's do that. Let's go up to Layer. We're going to do New, and we're going to choose Solid. The shortcut is Control Y. Okay, so a solid layer. And notice here I have a blue already set up here. So I'm going to use that because I want to create a sky. So I'm going to change the name of this label to Sky. Click OK. And there you see I have a solid layer named Sky on my timeline. I also want to have 2 clouds in this, so I'm going to Control Y is the shortcut. I'm going to change this color to more of a cloud color, maybe something like that, a nice gray cloud. And we're going to call this Cloud 1. Okay. And then we'll do one more, Control Y. Let's just do the shortcut here. And this will be Cloud 2. We'll just make it a little bit lighter than the other one. Perfect. Okay, and this is Cloud 2. Okay, and then we're going to do 2 lightning layers. I'm going to have some lightning. So Control Y. And we're going to do some kind of a yellowish tint for the lightning. That looks good right there. We'll call this Lightning 1. Click OK. And then instead of doing a new layer here, I'll just take this Lightning 1 and I'll duplicate it. Make sure it's selected in my timeline. Hit Control D. And notice there I've duplicated that layer. There's 2 of them here. I'm going to take this second one though and rename it. So just right click on the layer name in the timeline. Choose Rename. And I'm just going to change this to a 2. So there I have my 5 layers. I have 2 lightning layers, 2 cloud layers, and a sky layer. And that's basically how you might want to set up your file before you start drawing your shapes. Okay, so once you have that set up, now the next step would be to start drawing your shapes. So I have the lightning up here. I'm going to turn the eyeball off on it. Now watch in the timeline down here, when I turn the eyeball off, the layer is still there, you just can't see it. The sky one will leave on. You can see there, you can see it underneath, but that's on the bottom layer. So if I turn the eyeball on the top layer just above it, that's Cloud 1. Now if you double click on this, if you just double click on the layer, that brings up your edit window. And in this window, you can draw your shape here. So let me go to the pen tool up top here. You see the pen tool here. I'm going to grab that and watch, I can just click in here. Just go slow, take your time, and make a little cloud or something that looks maybe like a cloud shape. Just take your time. I can adjust these points later. So here, for example, I can just go up here and move it. And bring this down. And I'll adjust these too. And just make something that eventually will kind of resemble a cloud. I guess. Okay. Then once you click it all together, notice there it masks out everything around it and keeps what's in the inside. So right there is that kind of is how you do it basically to draw it in. And Notice there I clicked on it. Now it selected all my points. Let me show you a tool that you could use too to smoothen these out and round them out a little bit. Okay. Let's go up here again. When we use the pen tool, if you click and hold the left click and hold the mouse button down, it'll give you some other options. Try using the convert vertex tool. That's an interesting one. So click on that. It looks like a V, an upside down V. And just watch, click on a point, and what it does is it turns it into a more rounded, smooth Bezier curve. Then you also have these handles you can work with. But I mainly just clicked on the more angular points just to round them out a little bit. And just try that so you can get used to that, using that tool. There are other ways to do this as well, but this is a great tool to have at your disposal, you know, when you need to quickly adjust a few points. Okay, so the convert vertex tool will round things out for you. Get rid of those angles, right, and make it a little more organic looking. So something like that. Maybe click on this one. Maybe that one there. So that looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to click on the brush tool here, and over here you can actually click on brushes here, and that'll give you the type of brush you want to use. I want to use something that's kind of feathered on the edges. There we go. So if you select a brush, here you can get the biggest sizes. So I think you just, on this program, you just have to select them there. And let's change our foreground color. Let's get out of this here. If you go to paint here, the paint tab, we're going to change, well, actually, let's set it to, maybe we'll keep it a little bit darker here. Let's try that. So a little bit darker, and you just kind of click in areas. And again, you can make the brush smaller if you want. And let's go ahead and let's do a lighter color. Maybe let's just do white here. We could change the opacity and flow down too. Watch this. If I bring the flow down and the opacity, it's going to make it much lighter. That gives a little bit of depth to the clouds here. Again, let's bring it down some more. Okay, and you can just kind of add some color and some depth to your clouds. Something like that. We can also feather the shape too. Let's see if we can figure that one out. Let's go in here. Let's check the transform controls here. Okay, if we go into the mask here on the bottom, like, so if you go into inside of this layer, the mask that we created, if you go inside the mask itself, you can bring up the feathering on the edges. And notice what it does there is it makes the edges less sharp. Now you can go overboard with it. Like there, if you notice there, that's a little much, right? So just be careful about how much you use, and I think you can kind of make it a little more nicer looking there on the edges. So let's go back to the brushes again, and let's grab a smaller one. Oh, let's try, yeah, I thought it was, let's try 65. And again, let's go back to paint. And let's change our color to dark again. And again, let's keep the opacity and flow down. You can just add in a few more dark areas too, just to Control Z will undo it if you don't like it. And yeah, so anyway, there we go. All right, so anyway, that's our first cloud there. Okay, and now, so what we can do is turn that one off. Turn the light off of that one. And this is the layer cloud one here. I can close it up here on top of the monitor screen. And there you can see how it's existing with the sky now. But let's turn the eyeball off on that one. And let's go to cloud 2 now. And again, double click it. We'll do the same thing. We're going to grab our pen tool. So go up here, hold the left mouse button down, grab the pen tool, and we're just going to create another cloud here. Okay, and just take your time. Just one click at a time. Okay, and there's the other one. And again, we can click on that, double click those, and let's just go ahead and use the Convert Vertex tool again. Just go around and click on these. You can also click on them and move those handles as well. So if I move those handles out, you can see it's transforming that area of the shape. So that can work to your advantage too. But mostly I just like to round off the angular edges. Something like that. Okay. So again, it's great for just kind of rounding out the edges. Control Z will undo your last move if you... Something like that looks pretty good. And then here you can also grab the areas and move them around too. Control Z, but I'd get out of the vertex tool and just grab the pen tool to do that. I'm sorry, not the pen tool, the arrow tool here, or the cursor tool. And you can move these points too if you need to smooth them out or do anything else with them. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. And then let's grab again our brush tool here. Let's see. Well, first you got to make sure you grab the brush. That's pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and make sure, okay, we've got the darker on, that's good. And just kind of go around and brush. Let's grab a bigger one here. There's 100, that'll be good. You can also kind of just move it around too. Okay. That looks pretty good right there. Maybe a little bit more over here. All right, so looks pretty good right there. All right, so the next thing I would do again is go into the shape here, go into the mask, and we're going to look at the feathering here and just kind of feather up the edge there a little bit. That looks pretty good right there, maybe a little less. Right there looks pretty good. Okay, so once we're done with that, then we can close this. And let's turn these on. Now we have two clouds there that we can move around independently. Okay, so that's the basic idea on how you create your shapes. Using the pen tool up here. And then if you want to convert each point to a less angular, more smooth Bezier curve, use the Convert Vertex tool underneath. Okay, so next we'll do the lightning here. So let me turn this one on. Let's go up to that layer. And again, double click on it if you want to open up the editing layer. That's the easiest way. Grab your pen tool here and we'll just make what kind of looks like a lightning bolt. Kind of a cartoonish one, maybe. And that's okay. Okay. That looks good right there. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then again, I can grab my arrow tool here and just move these around if I want. Straighten them out, whatever you need to do. And again, I don't think I need to do any Bezier curves on these. Let's keep it nice and angular. That looks pretty good right there. And so that's lightning 2. And then maybe we'll go up here to lightning 1. Double click on it, same thing. We'll make another one. Make one maybe going the other way. Oh yeah, grab my pen tool. Just make something maybe a little different shaped. That looks pretty good. And then I again grab my arrow here, move things around. That looks pretty cool right there. So that'll be my other lightning layer. And so now that these are all done here, I can close this, go back. You can see all of my stuff here. Now the same thing with the lightning here, I could bring down the opacity a little bit too on these. So let's open up the layer, go to transform, and the opacity layer is at 100%. If I bring that opacity down, notice there it sort of becomes transparent, but just want it a little bit to see through it, just a little bit. That looks pretty good right there. So about 80%, 81%. Same thing with this one. Can bring the opacity down here just a little bit, something like that. That looks good. And just for the fun of it, let's take one of these layers and put it between the clouds. So one's kind of behind the clouds and one's in front. That looks kind of good there. And then we'll actually, let's bring up the opacity on this one a little bit. There, and then on the clouds too, we can do the same thing. Bring the opacity down just a little bit with the transform tool. So like that, so you can kind of see the lightning behind it. And let's do the same thing with the other cloud layer. Let's close all this other stuff here. Bring the opacity down just a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. Let's go with all that. So once you have your objects drawn and your layers go in there, now is a good time to animate. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the clouds here and just animate the lightning here. So to do this process, we're going to go right into the lightning 1 layer, open up our transform tools, and we're going to change the opacity level on this. Here you can see it's at 81, but we're going to change that. Let's start it at 0. So make sure your scrub key on the timeline's out to 0. If we start this on 0, we're going to start keyframing this by clicking the stopwatch here. So once you click this little stopwatch next to the transform tool, notice here that a keyframe was created along the timeline. That means we're starting the process of keyframing what it's going to do. So this thing's going to be maybe from here to here, we're going to keep it at 0%. So move it out to here, and if I want this to stay at 0, I want to copy this keyframe and move it over here. So you just select the keyframe, Control C to copy it, and then wherever your timeline is where it'll paste. So then click Control V, and notice there it pasted it there. So from here to here, it's going to stay at 0. But once it gets to right here, we're going to have this thing go up to 100%. So I'm going to take my opacity here. Since the stopwatch is already going, I'm going to just slide this up to 100%. And notice there it is. So when I scrub through this, it's going to stay at 0, then it's going to come in there. Maybe have it go out to 0 here. And notice it's automatically keyframing it once you click the stopwatch. That's like an auto key feature, right? And then right here, it's going to go up to 100% again. Or maybe not quite 100 there. And then by the time we get to 2 seconds, it's going to go back down to 0. All right, so that's the basic process of keyframing. Now watch when I play it on the timeline, you can see it flashing there. Okay, so now the next one is the other lightning. So we're going to close this one. We're going to go to lightning 2. Same thing, we're going to start, make sure your scrub key's at the beginning of the timeline. We're going to start with the opacity at 0. We're going to click plus sign. We'll have this one come up a little quicker. Right here, it's going to go up to 95%. Right here, back to 0. Then right here, maybe. Oh, actually, let's take this one. Let's keep it at 0 here. Control C to copy that. And then Control V to paste it along the scrub key there. So that'll stay at 0 here. And then come in at 100% maybe right there. So let's go ahead and keep that, copy this keyframe and paste it there again. So it'll stay at 0 that whole time, then it'll come up right there. Okay, now we're going to go up to 100%. Back down to 0. Back down to 100, or back up to 100%, or 98. Back down to 0. All right, so this is what we have with our lightning so far. Let's go hit the home key to go back to the beginning, space bar to play it. And you can see the lightning coming in at different speeds, so that looks pretty convincing, right? Okay, then probably the final movements I want to do is I want to make the clouds move. So I'm going to turn this on. And let's have this cloud maybe come in from the left and move across the sky like that maybe. Yeah, let's do that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and click that open, go to the transform tools. This time we're going to do a position change. So again, make sure you're at the beginning of the scrub key. Make sure you're in the position where you want your object to start. Click the stopwatch. What you do is you move your scrub key over a little bit. And let's say by the time we get to 2 seconds, this thing will have moved across the screen, right? So slow moving cloud there. And, you know what? Did I click the stopwatch? I think I did. Maybe I didn't. And it looks like I did. Yes, you see the keyframes there. So there I just needed a starting keyframe and an ending keyframe. And so let's go back to home and let's play this thing. And you can see it going across there. It's going pretty fast, isn't it? Okay, so now the last thing we want to do is the cloud 1 here. And notice here, it took me a minute to realize this, but notice on my timeline, notice here that in cloud 1 here, the track ends right here before 2 frames, so it disappears. If that happens on accident, just grab the end of the track, drag it all the way out to the end, and now you'll see that the cloud is not disappearing. So now just make sure that all your tracks are running from 0 to the last frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up cloud 1 here. We do have an initial position keyframe, and if I rewind it, let's go back here to the preview controls, or you can hit home too. If you click on the position keyframe, that's where I want it to start, so I'm going to leave that there. The stopwatch is clicked here, and we're going to move this thing across the screen, and this one will go across, probably be all the way across before the other one. Let's put it right there. We'll move this thing over, or if I hit controls either, or you can do the position controls here as well. Notice here I'm just sliding the position slider over here. And let's go ahead and make it come up too, maybe a little bit. And then for the rest of the time, or then have it go off the screen maybe about right there. And up. All right, so let's take a look now at all of our objects here and see what they're doing. So you can see that they're moving at different rates. This cloud kind of jumps at the end. So I'm going to adjust that jump there. I think it's a little too drastic. So I'm going to go back to cloud 1, open up my transformation controls, and see if I can make that smoothen out a little bit here. So we're looking at position. So let's click on that. And notice there, right there is where it jumps. It's very quick from here to here. So to slow that down, you can move these farther apart in time. Oops, Control Z. Just click off the keyframes if they're all selected, and then select the one you want. And let's space these out a little bit more, and I think that'll be less jumpy. Let's try that. Okay, and then go back to home, and then just click on it, and let's see. Still pretty jumpy right there, so I'm going to go ahead and move this keyframe still further away from there. Let's see if that fixes it, kind of. That's much better. It's less jerky. Okay? And so that's basically how you do this. To create your basic keyframe transformations, you're using solid layers. You're going to use the pen tool and the convert vertex tool to draw out your shapes. And then on the timeline down here, you're going to open up each layer, and you're going to use the transform controls, such as the opacity changes, position changes, rotation, to make your objects behave in a certain way that you want them to, and have them kind of interact with each other.